What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Sports Nerds. Earlier than usual, that we're usually live here in the week. I think this might be our first ever Monday show involving this NFL related podcast. But my name is Brock Beirman, alongside, as always, with a very, very, very happy Chiefs fan in Dawson Livingston.
What's going on? It's feeling good right now. We had a hell of a game yesterday. Ready to dive into it a little bit, and into the details of it.
What a game indeed! I mean, starting out didn't look like it was going to be that entertaining of a game. Ended quarter 1-0, and then we went all the way to overtime. I didn't know that we needed an extra 15 minutes, but that's what you get when you're in the Super Bowl, especially in Vegas. I thought it was funny that the announcers at one point were talking about how to win the Super Bowl you're going to have to bust, which you talk about Vegas 21 is the lucky number. Nobody hit 21, and that would have been hilarious if the winning team did end up actually hitting 21. But either way, the game went to overtime. Officially a dynasty for the people that were even questioning whether or not it was a dynasty or not. I was one of those that already thought the Chiefs were officially a dynasty, but 25-22 was the final score. I want to get your perspective first, since you're a Chiefs fan, of the game as a whole. What did you like? What didn't you like from the Chiefs? As well as, I don't know. I want your opinion on this, because I don't think really any major thing, in my opinion, lost the game for the 49ers. I just thought it was a good back and forth game that ultimately the Chiefs ended up winning.
Yeah, it was a great game by both sides. Like you said, the Niners didn't really do anything to lose that game. The only thing you could probably pin it on is the muffed punt where it hit the
Hmm.
back of the Niners player's leg, and which led very next play, Chiefs scored a touchdown, really kickstarted the offense and was able to get them going. No, both teams played relatively clean games, great defensive games by both teams. Steve Wilkes by the Niners and Steve Spagnuolo by the Chiefs both had great game plans against the other opposing quarterbacks. Um, for whatever reason, a lot of fumbles in this game. I feel like that, like we had an absurd amount of fumbles, whether they were recovered by other teams or
And
their
by
own
good
teams.
players.
Yeah, like Pacheco fumbling twice. Um, I know that Rice fumbled once.
McCaffrey
McCaffrey
fumbling in
obviously
the
fumbled. Yeah,
that
like
was the one that shocked me the most, was McCaffrey fumbling on the opening possession.
yeah, you really don't see a guy like him ever fumble the ball. Um, Overall, great game. It's my favorite Super Bowl I've ever watched, and probably the most exciting Super Bowl I've ever watched, other than maybe Seahawks Patriots. That one's probably still number one for me. I know people are going to say Patriots Falcons, but for 3.5 quarters, that game wasn't a game. So that's why I give the nod to Seahawks Falcons or Seahawks Patriots. Jesus.
Yeah, I agree. Me personally, being a huge Rob Gronkowski fan, I think my favorite Super Bowl would be against your Chiefs in that game in Tampa. But that has nothing to do with actually the quality of game. I think the quality of game, yeah, you're probably right. The Seahawks game was probably the last one where, like, I remember it being like fun to watch the entire time, not necessarily just a little bits and pieces of it. Um, this one's going to be an all-timer. People are going to be talking about this one for a while, and a lot of that has to do with your boy Mahomes getting his third Super Bowl in five, or is it 6 years now in the NFL? Is he a 6 year guy or fifth year?
It's his third in his last 5 years, but third in his
Six.
career. Yeah,
Okay, so
third in his sixth season starting.
okay, but for all those wondering, he now has 100% of Troy Aikman's Super Bowls. I know Troy Aikman has an old tweet out there saying, "Talk to me when he has 33% of my Super Bowls." Well, he now has 100% of them, and he's only 28. And this team doesn't look like it's going to get any worse. Maybe potentially lose one star, but like I'm pretty sure this team would be able to revamp their entire defense if needed. Um, but on the other side, 49ers, kind of a heartbreak. I did say that McCaffrey was going to need around 200 all-purpose yards to win the game. He got really close, only 40 yards away, 80 rushing yards and 80 receiving yards. Um, on the other side, like with the 49ers, the thing I think that that probably was the downfall is that they weren't able to get George Kittle involved as much as they probably would have liked to, but that's credit to the Chiefs defense. A lot of people would say, well, they didn't even look at Kittle. No, he was completely covered anytime he tried to go out for a pass, really, if you look at the plays. And that, again, that's just credit to this amazing Chiefs defense that really won them the game, in my personal opinion, because over time, 49ers were rolling down the field. Close to the end of the fourth, 49ers were rolling down the field, and they made big plays to make big stops. You can move the ball down the field as long as you don't give up a touchdown. That's not a big deal. It's a bend don't break aspect of the game that this Chiefs defense had last night, and it actually benefited them as they only gave up 22 points against the 49ers offense that it has been rolling all year.
I think where the Niners really started to let this game slip away was them going away from the run so much in like the third, fourth quarter. I know they got really run heavy in overtime. I know McCaffrey had to have like it felt like 5 or 6 carries on that last drive for them. But I feel like that's where kind of the momentum slipped, especially right after Mahomes threw the interception and the Niners have the ball in around the 40-yard line and they're not able to do anything with that, not able to get 3 points or even a touchdown out of it. I think that's what really hurt because you really could have had the Chiefs dead to water, down 14 points potentially or down 17 points. So I think if the Niners score on that drive, I think we're talking about a different ball game right now, in all honesty. But no, I think the Chiefs defense had a great game plan, baiting the Niners into throwing the ball more than they probably should have. Although McCaffrey did have 22 carries and Purdy threw the ball for 38 times, if I'm seeing that correct.
Yep.
38 times. So
Well,
shout out to Juwan Jennings, though. I know that's kind of gonna get swept under the rug.
I was just going to mention that. And I mean, I don't know what the contract situation is with some of the 49ers, but their offense, I think most of their star guys are going to be locked in for the next year or so. Juwan Jennings is a guy that people need to start paying attention to because he made some of the biggest plays. He threw for a touchdown and caught for a touchdown. First person to do that since Nick Foles, which, I mean, I don't think we'd ever mention Nick Foles here on this podcast, but here we are. But it's you can't really do like moral victories really, but if there is like a silver lining with this 49ers team, you got pretty much everybody back. Hopefully you can get everybody healthy. Not necessarily thinking that I didn't think that Debo getting hurt really hurt them at all. It was when George Kittle did because they had that crucial hold that would have been a first down against the tight end that came in for Kittle. But hopefully everybody can get healthy. Hopefully they can find a way to keep them healthy next year because, I mean, I think right now they are the favorites to win next year, which shows how good this team is going to be next year when it comes to returning players and assets. But Juwan Jennings is someone that people need to start having on their radar. He made some big plays in the playoffs, and I feel like next year is just a great opportunity for him being behind Debo and Brandon to break out.
I saw a thing on Twitter that Juwan Jennings was actually the highest rated college prospect quarterback in this entire game because he went to Tennessee as a quarterback, ended up switching to wide receiver. And in a game involving Patrick Mahomes and Brock Purdy, I know those guys weren't crazy highly touted recruits. I know Mahomes is a 3-star, and I think Purdy was a 3-star as well.
Hey, Purdy was getting looked at by Alabama.
Mahomes, I think, only had an offer from Tech, and maybe I know Texas offered him to play safety, but no, he had a great game. It was kind of tough for the Chiefs to guard all those weapons. The Niners, you can only do so much when there's McCaffrey, there's Kittle, there's Debo, there's Ayuk. Then Juwan was really able to thrive. He had some huge third down catches in that fourth quarter that really kept the Niners going. So, I mean, he was third on the team in receiving behind McCaffrey and Ayuk. Had a 99.2 quarterback rating, which is kind of funny. 1 for 1, 21 yards, 1 touchdown. But I won't lie. When he threw that pass to McCaffrey's like running to the end zone wide open. The little doubt creeped in my mind. I'm like, okay, I'm really about to watch Rose Bowl Part 2. And If the Niners would have won, that's what I would have blamed it to immediately.
Yeah, and I mean he had a good game. I when the one thing that I will say about the whole game as a whole, just the broadcast side of it. I get that Tony Romo I get that you guys want to run the ball with Christian McCaffrey, and Tony said that pretty much every play in the third quarter. But the Chiefs, and then the best part is there was a play when he said it, and then they handed it to him, and he got tackled for a loss. He's like, "Oh, the Chiefs knew he was going to do that." Well, there's your issue. The Chief, you can run the ball, but if the Chiefs know what they're doing on the defensive side, you can't run the ball. And that's why I think the 49ers were throwing it, is because they realized the defense in the third, at least, they weren't able to find a formation that looks good for a run. And when I hear Tony Romo talking crap about that, and I know he knows a lot because he played football, he was a quarterback, but I also remember towards the end of his career, all he was doing was handing the ball off because he had a dominant running back, and that didn't win him a Super Bowl. So I don't know. That thing bugged me a little bit because McCaffrey he ended the game with 22 carries. Of course, I think 8 of those probably came in overtime. It felt like, at least. But still, you can't just run the ball every play with this team. There's just too many weapons to not throw it at any point. Do I think they probably should have ran it a little more? Yeah, I actually kind of liked Mitchell's efforts on the 2 carries that he had. He had some big rushes for a team who really relied on one person to run the ball the entire game. But no, I don't hate what the 49ers did on offense. They just couldn't probably get those big plays. And you know what? Biggest play of the game was that third down in overtime when Chris Jones was able to get to Purdy. That was the play of the game. And I don't care what people say, that was the biggest play of the entire game. Because
that won Kansas City the Super Bowl.
Because that would have been a touchdown. It wasn't exactly the same route, but it was almost the same route that or at
McCall
least
Hardman.
Yes, it looked very similar in the way that San Francisco was trying to get the ball to the outside, and I don't know who would have gotten the catch, honestly. I don't.
It was Juwan.
It was
Juwan would
Juwan.
have won Super Bowl MVP because he would have had 2 touchdowns, receiving and a passing touchdown.
So credit to Chris Jones, probably the best defensive player on either side last night, talent-wise. Credit to Bosa being able to get to Mahomes multiple times. There's only so much you can do. That's another thing with Romo, is like one play he'll be like, you can't let him get to the outside. And then the next play he's like, you can't let him get to the inside. I'm like, no, you can't do anything then. So it's pick your poison with Mahomes. But no, I think that the 49ers had a good game plan. I think the Chiefs had a great game plan. Really, it was just little mistakes on turning the ball over for both sides, really, because both sides almost lost the game because of turnovers. Of course, the biggest one was the fumble on the punt that cost the 49ers really the Super Bowl, because I bet you they would have been able to milk the clock, not saying that the Chiefs wouldn't have been able to tie it or score there, but it would have been a different situation for San Francisco if they would have recovered that ball.
Yeah, both teams had 2 turnovers, if I'm reading that correct?
Yep.
Because of the McCaffrey fumble.
How many fumbles did Kansas City have?
Kansas City only lost 1, and it was the
Okay.
Pacheco one in the red zone.
What was your thought on who was it Rice that basically threw the ball forward?
It was Rice.
I didn't get to see a good enough replay of it.
He definitely threw that forward. I'm not gonna lie. He 1000% threw that forward.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I was like, it looks like he threw it forward.
Now, I'd have to watch it again. I'm gonna be honest. Last night was a little bit of a blur, just with all the excitement of watching the game. So I'm gonna have to do a deep dive and watching this again. But it looked like he was throwing the ball forward, which is a flag. It's I don't even know what the flag name is, but it's throwing the ball past the line of scrimmage. But there was some so calls in this game that kind of were irritating.
Do you think that from my perspective, the officials in the first quarter were calling holding on the offense, and then the remainder of the game they were only calling it against the defense.
Yes. Yeah, because the first quarter, didn't they call like 6 penalties in the first quarter?
Yeah,
It felt like that anyway.
I
But
and 49ers did as well, but like I'm not trying to be that guy, but like I do think the Chiefs. There were a couple plays where I was like, oh God, this guy is getting absolutely raked at the neck. But also helps that Mahomes is able to get out of the pocket quickly, so the officials can't really have time to decide whether or not it's a hold. But 49ers had a play, the touchdown play, legal man downfield. So
mhm.
it wasn't a terrible officiating game, but there were a couple plays that played some uh, major impact on the game.
I will say this. At the end of regulation, when Mahomes is throwing that to Kelsey on the back shoulder fade, and I know all my roommates were wanting a flag. I'm kind of glad they didn't throw that flag because then this whole Super Bowl would have just had an asterisk on it, in my opinion.
Was
If the
I
game,
I didn't think it was pass interference though.
I didn't think it was either, but I know a lot of my friends were arguing that it was.
I would
So,
think you just kind of
and
went.
I
You
was,
kind of did the basketball straight up. Not as long as you don't have to turn around anymore. As long as you kind of go straight up, it's not like a penalty. But no, I get what you mean.
yeah, like I feel like people would be looking at the Super Bowl like they were the last one, which I even argue that one was a hold. The
That one
first angle
was.
that everyone that first angle that everyone saw on national television didn't look like it was a hold. But then when you watch the NFL Films version of it, and Bradbury's got a fistful of jersey,
Yeah, that one was. That one was clear and cut.
but I think outside of the first half, I think the officials kind of stayed away from it. I didn't really think there were too many impactful calls. Maybe the holding on the backup 49ers tight end, but that was a legitimate hold
Yep,
on I think it was Tranquil or Karloftis or one of the Chiefs defenders. But no, one of the better Super Bowls I think I've ever watched in the last few years.
I agree. And I mean, another great performance. He had one interception, but so real quick, I want to ask you about that interception. Who was Mahomes throwing to, in your opinion? Because
I hope he's throwing to Kelsey there. I hope he's not trying to force that in a double coverage to MVS. And I
it
hope he
looked
just
weird.
airmailed it, but
And oh my gosh, MVS had a great effort play in overtime, but it could have costed the Chiefs by continue trying to run because what did they lose 4 or 5 yards on that play?
it would have been 2nd and 5 had he just went down. And then he just starts running backwards for a loss of 4. But one thing I did like is I think the very next play they went right back to MVS and he
Yep.
was able to get 5 or 6 yards, which put him up for that 3rd and 7, which I think Rice was able to pick up or Mahomes was able to scramble. Maybe I'm getting these confused. But one thing I did like about the Chiefs game plan is the amount of players that they got involved on offense. If I'm reading
Yep.
this right, they had 8 players catch more than 2 passes. Kelsey, Hardman, Watson, Rice, Pacheco, Gray, MVS, and Jerick McKinnon
Yep.
all chipped in. McCole Hardman was actually the second leading receiver with 57 yards and that touchdown to seal the game. But I feel like Mahomes really down the stretch really only trusted Kelsey. But when he threw it to McCole, I was like, oh, okay, here we go.
And
But
that's like overtime is a situation where it's like, okay, everybody's gonna expect you to go to this one star player. So run something, run the play that you have specialized for another guy that no one really cares about because it's gonna work. I feel like 9 times out of 10, it's probably gonna work because everybody's expecting you to go to a stud. Like if it was the 49ers and they were throwing McCaffrey, Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, they're kind of all guys everybody expects to get the ball. Fortunately for them, they probably have more weapons to kind of manipulate their offense to do that. But like reason Juwan Jennings had a big game is because nobody was necessarily expecting him to be like a focal point in this offense.
yeah, I mean, when you put they're usually putting Snead on Debo the whole game and McDuffie on Ayuk, which kind of left the game open for Juwan Jennings. But no, on that last touchdown for Kansas City, I don't know if you noticed, that's the same exact play they ran against the Eagles last year to get Kadarius Toney a touchdown to a T. It's a motion in, and he's going right back out, and he's wide open for game.
Mahomes and Reed, man, those two are magicians. And Andy Reid wins his third Super Bowl. I think his fifth one all time as a coach. I don't remember what this is.
He may have
made
had
one
some
with
with
the
Green Bay
Eagles.
when he was like a quarterback's coach,
Okay.
I think, or tight ends coach.
But he definitely on the Mount Rushmore of head coaches now. My opinion, probably top 2 all time, if not only top 3 at least. But speaking of where people are ranked, what does this game, in your opinion, do to Mahomes' rank all time? Because I'm not gonna lie, I said top 3 at the beginning of the year. I'm already putting him at 2.
Okay, and I had this argument with my roommates last night, and I might get a lot of hate for this take. Patrick Mahomes is the best player the NFL has ever seen. Now, that's different from the greatest player. Greatest is accomplishments, and that's rings, and that's trophies. That's all that. Brady's the greatest player we've ever seen. Just the impact that he had on the game. Best is eye test, talent. Dude, if you realistically at this point don't believe that Mahomes isn't the greatest player we've ever seen in the NFL, I think you're lying to yourself at this point.
Best player, not the greatest, you said.
Best player, yeah, sorry. He is the best. I flipped it on myself. But no, he is definitely, in my opinion, the best player of all time. And I'm ready for all the hate and all the controversy on that, but he just is, in my opinion.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it whatsoever. To go a little NBA on you, I think Kobe Bryant is the best player that we have seen in NBA history, but his accolades don't unfortunately stack him up against the other two in LeBron and Jordan. Now, in this situation, though, Mahomes will be stacked up against Brady at some point when it comes to accolades. So he doesn't have to worry about being the Kobe Bryant where like everybody remembers him as an all-time great, but he won't ever be considered in the top 2, top 3. There's some people that don't put Bryant in top 3, and it really upsets me. But anyways, not to get on an NBA rant, but Mahomes, in my opinion, already when it comes to greatest, I already put him at number 2. I don't care what people say. And then when it comes to best, so this one's really tricky because then you're really talking about not just quarterbacks, if that makes sense. And like then I start thinking about players that we've had in the past where like Bo Jackson was unbelievable as an athlete. Michael Vick, everybody knows Michael Vick broke Madden in 2004. But like I see what you're saying though. Like I'm not saying I disagree. Like I'm not whatsoever saying I disagree because Mahomes is unbelievable. If he retired right now, which he won't because he's still got work to do, he'd be a first ballot Hall of Famer. That's where he's at. Compared to some other quarterbacks in the last 10 years, they might have to sit on the ballot a while before they can get in. But I don't hate it. I don't hate what you just said.
I think when we look back at Mahomes' career in 10, 15 years, I think this Super Bowl run is going to be the one where people talk about his most impressive accomplishment. The fact that they had to go on the road back-to-back weeks in Buffalo, in Baltimore, and then they had to play arguably the favorites throughout the entire season in the Niners, and they were able to beat them all. Kind of in ugly games too. Not a whole lot of high-powered scoring offenses. I mean, the Ravens-Chiefs game, the total score was 27 points, and at halftime of the Super Bowl, it was 10-3, like kind of a lower scoring, uglier game. But I do think when we look back towards the end of his career, we're like, hey, what's his most impressive Super Bowl run out of his 3 or however many more he gets? Because I do believe he will get at least 2 more. I think people are going to point to this one.
Completely agree. Switching over to the other quarterback, Brock Purdy proved that he can compete at the highest level if needed. That guy didn't look like the Super Bowl phased him whatsoever. Only sacked, was he sacked how many times? Once?
once.
Only once,
And it was
which
early in the game that he was sacked. It wasn't even like a late game sack.
almost had a 70 QBR, 255 yards, a passing touchdown. He did have 3 rushes, only 12 yards, but those rushes were key, as well as Mahomes had some unbelievable ones. Also, shout out Patrick Mahomes already being the all-time rushing leader in Chiefs history in the playoffs. Or Super Bowl. I don't remember which stat it was. I think it's
I wouldn't be
playoffs.
shocked if it's either, honestly.
I bet you it's both. Well, and like over half the Super Bowls now that the Chiefs have been in, he's been in. So
Yeah.
it probably doesn't shock me. But with Purdy, I just wanted to point out that a certain quarterback that loved to hate on him the past couple of weeks said that he probably would start over him. Only scored 10 points in his Super Bowl run when they lost to the Broncos, and had an interception, no touchdowns whatsoever.
Didn't dive on the ball to save the game.
Didn't dive on the ball to save the game. So for those that are still debating on whether or not Purdy deserves to be in the NFL or not, please shut your mouth. This guy proved that he can play in the NFL, has the ability to run an offense. And when people talk about game manager, systems quarterback, oh, that's great. He's good at finding a way to run an offense. That's what you want in a quarterback. So please stop with all this Purdy hate. Dude went from last pick to almost winning the Super Bowl. Couple plays change, probably wins the Super Bowl. And we talked about probably the biggest play or biggest mistake for the 49ers being that fumble on the punt. He has no control over that. And really, you look at all the mistakes in that game, none of them were really his fault. And a lot of people
He
were
had
expecting.
there I will say this, and I'm not trying
Yeah.
to be a hater.
No, no, no,
There
no.
was the one play where he overthrew Debo for what would have been a touchdown.
Yep, 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 yep,
Or
yep.
was it Debo or was it was someone?
So the Ayuk
He
one, Ayuk ran like that little like cut route, like where he was faking inside and then went.
Yes. Yep, that's the play
And
I'm thinking of. And that one I think he missed, but I also think if I remember right, I think he was gonna get sacked had he not
yep,
thrown that ball up.
which is credit
So
to that Chiefs defense.
yeah, if you really wanted to get picky, I think that could be it. But at the end of the day, I mean, when you're playing Steve Spagnuolo, you got to have eyes in the back of your head, the side of your head. You got to be looking everywhere because you know he's going to send some insane blitzes just from anywhere at any sort of angle.
Also, I don't remember what play it was in overtime. I know it was a third down. I think it was a third down where the 49ers basically sent pretty much everybody and Rice got a little inside route for a first down. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Don't send everybody on third down and short against the Chiefs. That is rookie mistake.
Well, I'm okay with sending 6 right there. Here's the issue, though. When your other 5 defenders are all backed off the line of scrimmage by 5 yards or 10 yards at least, that's when the drag routes can get wide open, and that's when you can really get exposed to defense. When Kansas City does that same thing, they will have their corners jamming at the line of scrimmage and pressing the other team's receivers to buy as much time for that blitz to get in as possible. That's where I think the Niners really started to screw up this game in overtime. Is they did that a couple times where they sent 6 people and they had 5 people back in coverage, not really pressed on anyone, not really manned up on anyone. But I think what's going to go unnoticed is on that third down that you were talking about to Rice. The crazy blitz pickup by Jerick McKinnon, who, if you remember last Friday, I said is going to be huge for Kansas City if he's going to play. He only had I think 2 catches in the game. I don't even think he had a rushing attempt. But Jerick McKinnon is the best pass blocking running back I've ever seen in my life for being someone who's 5'9", and was able to stop Fred Warner on that play to give Mahomes that extra half second to throw it to Rice for the first down, and which they ended up scoring on that drive.
Yeah. I mean, everybody was stepping up on this Chiefs team. Everybody was stepping up on the 49ers team as well. This was just a really, really fun game to watch. Probably the most invested I've ever been as a football fan because I'll never watch my Cardinals ever make a Super Bowl. That's just what I've accepted. So it was fun actually kind of like watching a game and like, oh, I need to like actually care about every single play versus like, oh, yeah, I'm watching the Super Bowl and they're teams that I don't really care who wins. But no, this is going to be a game that I'll never forget, whether or not it's for good or for bad reasons. But yeah, what in your opinion? And we'll start with your team just because you'll have more insight on this. What's next? Because they do
Well,
have a lot of moves, or not a lot of moves, but some big moves that potentially may change their roster.
no, they do. The big one, obviously, and I've talked about it a lot. Chris Jones was last night the last game he's ever going to play for Kansas City. I hope not. I hope that they can get something figured out. I did see a report that Kansas City's going to try to restructure Mahomes' contract, which I think can save them $37 million. And right now, you have the golden window to manipulate the cap with Mahomes' contract because of how long it is. And I don't know. If they can bring Chris Jones back, if they can bring Snead back, and they can get a receiver, whether it's draft, free agency, dude, three-peat. I'm
Y'all be
telling you this
watching.
right now. I'm calling my shot. If they are able to retain those two and pick up someone on the offensive side of the ball, I'm thinking three-peat.
Y'all better be watching the St. Louis Battlehawks during the UFL, man. They got this receiver. His name's Hakeem Butler. Oh, I think Mahomes would love to throw to that guy. Double coverage, dude catches it almost every time. Wide open. Don't throw it to him wide open, though. If he's wide open, don't throw him the ball. He's not going to catch it. But
The
if
J.R.
he's
Smith of the NFL is what I'm
yes,
hearing.
yes, that is a great comparison. Hakeem Butler is guarded by 2 or 3 people. He's catching it.
J.R. Smith's guarded by 2 or 3 people. He's going to switch that. He's wide open.
Oh, what
I
was
don't
the
know.
weird stat that I saw? Sorry to get on a little NBA
No
thing.
worries.
Isn't he like one of 4 NBA players all time to have like 14, 8 plus 3-point? There was Curry had that huge game last week,
Yeah.
and like they had some stat, and it was like Dame, Curry, I think Lillard. Dame, Curry, and then Thompson, and then it was J.R. Smith out of nowhere, and everybody's like, "What is J.R. Smith doing here?"
Dude, people forget the
No, that's
J.R.
what I'm gonna
Smith
say.
Denver Nuggets days.
Underrated,
The New York Knicks days.
underappreciated.
And his
Under,
first 2 years in Cleveland, that man was absolutely bananas when it comes to shooting the ball.
But yeah, the dude, you said three-peat, and it scares the crap out of me. But if I had to put money down right now on a team to win it next year, you know what I said? All year I kept saying, to be the man, as the famous Ric Flair once said, to be the man, you have to beat the man. And I did the one thing that you don't do, and that was bet against Patrick Mahomes. And Mahomes is the man. Right now, if you listed the faces of the NFL, Mahomes, there is nobody else. There is not one player that can go up against Mahomes right now when it comes to popularity and ability on the football field. Popularity, there's a lot of players that can, not necessarily a lot of players, but there's a handful of players that probably could go up against him when it comes to popularity. I know a lot of people like talking about Joe Burrow and stuff like that. Mahomes is the only person right now. There is no other face right now. During the Brady Manning era, it was kind of Brady Manning, Brady postseason wise, Manning regular season wise. And you're probably loving this because you're getting this from a guy that's not a Chiefs fan. There's nobody right now that can touch Patrick Mahomes. And you know what? I started thinking about this last night, and I will say it. Dawson, who if you would have to list probably my top 3 NFL players all time, who would probably be on that list? It's a specific player, and you're gonna know why I'm asking you this in a second.
Well, Brady's in there for sure.
Okay.
Gronkowski's in there.
Okay, that's the guy I wanted you to mention. And this is gonna hurt me, and Dawson's gonna realize what I'm about to say in a second. That's gonna hurt me really bad. Travis Kelce is the greatest tight end of all time. And that pains me to say that. Not many people will realize how much that pains me to say. Dawson knows how much that pains me to say. Travis Kelce is the greatest tight end that has ever played football in the NFL. Hands down. Right now, there's nobody better than him.
Dude, I mean, I've been saying this all year. Ever since they won last year, I was saying that, and when that wasn't really a popular take. And I know that's a little biased, and people can call me a homer and stuff like that. But I think the connection that Mahomes and Kelce has is the greatest we've ever seen. The only one you could possibly throw in an argument is Montana Rice, just because they had all those postseason records for so long. But now I think Kelsey's only behind in, was it yards
Oh,
or
I'm
behind Rice? He's
greatest
number
connection of all
one or
time.
two in every single receiving category in the playoffs history.
There is no. I'm sorry, Gen X and Boomers. There is no. No, there is no number. Maybe someone else. There is no maybe. These two are the greatest duo in NFL history. And it scares me because, okay, Kelce might be a little bit older, but yeah, that's great. But like he hasn't. A lot of people would try to argue that he showed a little bit of age this year. I just think that it emphasized the issue on the wide receiver side more than necessarily him showing his age because they had to rely on Kelce a little more. If they get another receiver or two, like you said, and I bet you they get a couple, whether it's through the draft or through free agency, and they're not going to be like big names. They're going to be names that are reliable though. Good Lord. You said three-peat. Dude, I'm talking more than a three-peat right now. I'm not trying to like overblow this whole situation, but like you said, if Mahomes might restructure his contract, if he's willing to do that for one player, dude, I don't like this, but like the future in Kansas City, and I know everybody knows that the future is bright in Kansas City, but it's scary. Like we're talking like this right now, like it's crazy that we may end up seeing the two greatest dynasties in our lifetime in NFL history.
I feel so bad for every other AFC team or every fan of an AFC team that isn't the Chiefs or the Patriots over the last 20 years and for the next 10, 15 years. Because you had to deal with the Patriots going to the Super Bowl every year, and you didn't get a break. Right after the Patriots made the Super Bowl, Kansas City made the Super Bowl. We have had some random AFC quarterbacks make it, like Flacco. We had the Joe Burrow year. We had a couple Big Ben years.
Manning and Ben won.
That
No,
was
no,
earlier
I
on,
get
though.
I get
Are
it.
we talking late 2010s when the
Oh, yeah.
Patriots went on that dominant? They won 3 and 4 years,
Ever since
or
ever
3 and
since,
5 years, I think.
ever since I can't remember which number of Super Bowl it was. Pittsburgh versus Arizona. I think that was the last
Mhm.
time that I would say that it was like, "Oh, it could be anybody from the AFC." Then it was kinda like, "Well, if you can beat Brady, then you could probably make the Super Bowl." And now it's, "Well, if you can beat Mahomes, then you could probably win the Super Bowl." It's not, "Oh, they have a decent chance to make the Super Bowl." It's, "If you can beat Mahomes, then maybe," because even the Bengals made it and they didn't win it. So even if you do beat Mahomes, maybe you can win the Super Bowl. So no, and here's the thing: there's a lot of people that love hating on the Chiefs. It is my personal opinion. I want to know what people's reasons are for hating Kansas City. There isn't really a thing about Mahomes, about Kelsey. I get it if you don't like Taylor Swift. I'm not a fan of her music. I honestly thought it was kind of cool, the whole celebration. Granted, did they show her maybe a little too much during the game? Yeah, but at the same time, it's the Super Bowl. They're going to do that when she has some kind of affiliation with the team. But with Kansas City, dude, I hate you, man. You get you got to watch LeBron. You got Kansas City. What do I get? I get one
You get
opportunity
Jason Tatum and Kyler Murray is what you get.
in like, dude. I just can't win. Even I knew this Super Bowl was over when McCaffrey fumbled it in the first drive. I know that the 49ers were winning for the most part of it, but like after the first drive and he fumbled it there, I'm sitting there with my Brock Purdy jersey on and I'm like, "Yep, this is your fault. You put on this jersey, so you cursed that entire franchise for this game." So next year I am buying myself a Kansas City jersey for the Super Bowl. And I'm going to see if that I'm going to really test this theory on if I'm a curse or not, because I have yet to see any of my teams or anybody that I cheer for really win it. But yet you got LeBron, you got Caitlin Clark, which, by the way, shout out your coach for holding back on her trying to break that record. That's why they lost yesterday.
Yeah.
Just my 2 cents.
Yeah.
But you got undefeated regular season in football, multiple. You got me heated this morning, man. But no, real quick, before we get on what's next for the 49ers, I wanted to get your thoughts on the new overtime rules, because this was it. It's so weird that like the first time a new rule gets gets like actually used is the Super Bowl. How did you?
Yeah.
I like that both teams get the ball. I didn't know, and maybe this is my own fault, that it's basically 2 quarters. What I don't. That's the one thing I don't like about it.
Well, I mean, I think it kind of has to be, right? If both teams get a shot at a possession, then I think
How
it
about no
has to
time?
be. That could be a good one too, but I feel like it would just stall out at that point. I feel like there has to be a time limit at some point because it doesn't isn't double OT sudden death. Like if
Oh,
after the
yeah, I
next
guess.
20 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever, it's
Dude,
sudden death.
just give me
I'm
the
not gonna
old.
lie. I completely forgot about it until Romo started explaining it that hey, both teams get to start out with possession. Cause I was like, as soon as the Niners won the coin toss, I'm like,
No, don't worry. It sounds like, at least from what I've seen on social media, the 49ers forgot as well. Did you see
well,
that? Multiple
yeah.
players said that they didn't know either.
Well, here's the thing that I think people are giving Kyle Shanahan a lot of criticism on is receiving the ball first in overtime. Wouldn't you want to know how many points you need to score to win? That's my
Yeah.
philosophy. I would always want the ball second. And let's say, hey, let's say Kansas City started out with ball yesterday, they went down the field, scored a touchdown, like they probably were going to do anyway. Wouldn't you like to know that as a Niners fan, where it's like, hey, if it's a 4th down and we absolutely have to go for it, then we can, versus what the Niners did on 4th and 4 in the red zone. They ended up taking the 3, which ended up costing them the game. That's where I think that the Niners screwed up, and I think that's why a lot of them are really upset this morning. But at the same time, I mean, the Niners had the Chiefs at a 4th and 1, a couple 3rd and longs. Like, you got to execute on those plays too. I got you fuming right now. You are just upset. I like this.
I just can't be happy, man. I can't. I just want to be happy once in life, man. At this rate, I'm convinced that I'll never see any of my teams win a ring. Heck, that just yeah, I'm gonna get off of that. All right, let's get back into like the future for both teams. We talked about what's next for the Chiefs. We both agree that they're probably I know the 49ers came out as probably the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl. But the Chiefs, I'm on the don't bet against Patrick Mahomes train now. I've done it too many times. I don't know why I thought the one time that I actually care about who's playing in the Super Bowl would change anything, but here we are. You know what's you know what, here real quick. I hate to get on another side conversation, but you know what's really killing me? Is I gotta pay for your meal now.
I forgot about that.
For those that don't know, we made a bet that he took the AFC side, I took the NFC side. Whoever won the Super Bowl, we'd have to pay for each other's meals. I took the NFC side, so unfortunately, I'm gonna have to do that. Do we want to make that almost a yearly thing? Just
Yeah.
because I'll take the NFC side each year, and you take the AFC side each year. I know that's probably gonna bite me in the butt, but like I'm NFC loyal, so and you're AFC loyal for obvious reasons. So, but getting back into this, what's next for Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers? Because I think they're going to be able to retain a lot of their players. I don't know what their whole contract situations with a lot of those players are, anyways. But and like we'll probably get into that later in the year when we get to like free agency and stuff like that. But the favorites to win the Super Bowl next year, what are your thoughts? Would you put them as the favorite in the NFC side heading into the offseason?
Yes. I don't trust any other NFC team. None of them have the playoff experience or they're chokers. And when I say
Referring to
chokers, I
Dallas.
mean Dallas Cowboys. You're the 2 seed at home. I'm still mad about that one.
You would have
That ruined
gotten
my entire playoff bracket.
You would have gotten your preseason prediction perfectly if they would have made the Super Bowl, because there's no way they would have beaten the Chiefs.
No. But here's the thing with the Niners. They have the absolute golden ticket in the NFL. Not only do they have their quarterback on a rookie contract, they have their quarterback on the cheapest possible contract you can have for the next 2 seasons. Purdy, I think, is only making like $900,000,
which is not good with the current economy.
He's making $1 million
California
right now.
He's not good for living in California.
No,
it's more specifically San Francisco.
Yeah. Though, real quick, when you were talking about it, I pulled up their cap situation. They're going to have about $500,000 in cap space, so they're definitely going to need to make some moves to get under that threshold. But again, they got some wiggle room. They got like Eric Armstead, who has a super huge cap hit, which they can either move on from, restructure. I'm looking at all their contracts right now. They have a lot of their main guys under contract with Trent Williams, Debo, Fred Warner,
What's
Kittle.
Chase Young's contract again? Did he get an extension?
Chase Young they might be losing him.
Okay.
They might lose him just because I think he got his 5th-year option declined, so I think he's going to be a free agent this year.
If he could somehow find his way back on that roster, it might be them and that's it for the NFC side. Because not that he's like an X factor, but he helps that defense so much.
Right. No, totally agree. And again, the Niners were able to keep a lot of these star players because of their quarterback being on such a cheap contract. And they won't even have to start contract negotiations with Purdy until next year, I believe. I don't think they can start this year. So they're in a great spot for that. Here's the issue, though, for me, is I feel like this roster really can't get that much better. I feel like they have what they have at this point, and unless someone takes a huge step forward, I feel like they can't, they're not going to go 17-0. They're not going to do anything in that. But I do think that they're kind of stuck with the players they have. I'm curious to see if they're able to keep Ayuk this offseason, because I know he's going into the last year of his deal, and who knows if they'll be able to afford him and Debo and Kittle and McCaffrey. But
they're in a weird situation because they got a lot of great players, but it's going to be hard to tell one of them oh, you're not as important as the other. You know what? They're in the situation that the Celtics were in about 2010, 2011 when Ray Allen left. Again, I don't know why we're in an NFL podcast talking about the NBA again, but Rondo got that huge deal because he was younger. Ray Allen left, and I don't know. We got someone going to the Chiefs from the 49ers. Are we going to be having a situation like that?
I mean, I would take Ayuk in Kansas City. I would have absolutely no
if that
complaints.
Happens, I'm done. If that happens, I'm done. I'm out. I'm not even going to watch the league if that happens, because I think he's their best receiver.
He is.
Debo's a Swiss Army knife, but Ayuk is a pure, legit star receiver.
He is one of the better route runners that we have in this league. But yeah, I don't think they'll be able to keep him. It's the same concept for me of the Bengals with T. Higgins. I don't think they'll be able to keep T. Higgins when Burrow's on a $50 million contract. Jamar's going to get at least 30. I mean, if you don't think he's going to get $30 million per year, he's going to be around that Tyreek Hill range. But I think overall, just to sum it up with the Niners in their offseason, they do have all their draft picks, or they at least have their first and second round draft picks, I think. They actually have a lot more than that. They have 1 first, 1 second, 2 thirds, 2 fourths, a 5th, 3 sixths, and a 7th. So we'll see. Obviously, don't know if we're going to touch on it, but I think Kansas City's got about $30 million in cap space going into the offseason, which the potential to get, I think, up to 50 or 60 if Mahomes is able to restructure. So we'll see.
Man, you know what? This was a great season. I enjoyed it. Real quick, I want to get your opinion on what people are saying about the Chiefs having to deal with a bunch of adversity. Do you agree with that throughout the season? See, I agree with it a little bit, but from my standpoint, a lot of it was kind of like their own, like that they built the roster that they created.
Self-inflicted.
Yes. But that's not hating on them. That's just they built the roster and it didn't work out the way that they thought it was. Things happen like that. Trust me, I'm a Celtics fan. You build a roster, sometimes it doesn't work out, and the adversity is your own fault. But what is your thoughts on that? I don't know. And shout out our fellow 515 guy, Max Olson, 49ers. What happened? He was hating on me because, he's a Seahawks fan. We're both on the NFC West side. And he was hating on me for wearing a Purdy jersey because, rivalry. But, oh, Max, I don't know if he's still on here, but we were just talking about our favorite Super Bowl being the Seahawks versus Patriots. That was a great game, especially when Wilson decided to throw it on a slant route. But either way, back to what we were talking about. What are your thoughts on the whole narrative that the Chiefs fought through a bunch of adversity?
Well, I agree with you a little bit. That was self-inflicted, but I mean, like, think about all the weird stuff that happened in Kansas City this year. Before the season even starts, Chris Jones holds out all of training camp, isn't there at all, misses the first game of the regular season, and they get back to it on Tuesday after they lose to the Lions. It's like, hey, Chris, let's sign you for a 1-year deal. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off. You can play for us for $27 million or whatever. They thought Kadarius Toney was going to be their number one receiver. That didn't work out. They thought Sky Moore was going to improve. That didn't work out. Thankfully, they had one shining light in their receiver room, and that was Rashee Rice. But they were dealing with drops all year and really inconsistency from like the running aspect. They would have crazy good games, and then they would have games where Pacheco would have like 30 or 40 yards. But I don't know if they really battled adversity because at the end of the day, they were the defending Super Bowl champs. So I feel like you can't really say that they didn't have a great chance. I know people were writing them off a month and a half ago, 2 months ago before the playoffs started, especially after that Raiders game. I wouldn't blame them. They did not look good at all. I mean, how can you go from losing to the Raiders on Christmas Day at home to running the table the rest of the way the regular season, going on the road and winning the Super Bowl in the Raiders Stadium, might I add?
Yeah,
which I think is a little bow on top of this whole thing. But I don't really think they had battle adversity.
He's throwing heat. Max is out here commenting. What's worse, throwing the ball at the one or not knowing the new overtime rules? Max, be honest. Not many people, even the 49ers, nobody really knew the overtime rules. That's why Tony Romo had to kept saying, run the ball, run the ball. Oh, by the way, it's a new quarter situation in overtime. Run the ball, run the ball. But sorry to interrupt you on your little tangent that you were going. But no, credit to the Chiefs, man. I don't hate the Chiefs. It's actually enjoyable to kind of watch them win. And I want to give a shout out. I doubt he'll see this, but shout out my man Brad G. He's helped me out a lot with sports media stuff at Iowa State. He's been working for the Chiefs for a while now, and dude just got his third championship. Look at him with that WWE title belt, man. Dude, you know what? And that's a perfect title right there because that is the one held by, again, getting a little wrestling, sorry, but Dawson, but held by the tribal chief of the WWE, Roman Reigns, and he's the head of the table. Well, guess what? The Kansas City Chiefs are the head of the table when it comes to the NFL. So I wanted to give a shout out to my boy Brad. I doubt he'll see this, but he's helped me out a lot with my career and everything. So credit to him, credit to the Chiefs, and shout out to Chiefs Kingdom, I guess.
Yeah, it was a great season. It's sad that no more football. I know we're going to have the UFL.
Yeah, I was going to say, whoa.
Well, that's in a month and a half. Let me have my
Ka is law, baby. It is St. Louis Battlehawks season, baby. Coach Beck and the boys are ready. We gonna be rolling for that championship, man.
Dude, I might
Representing
have to
the
pick a team for
XFL.
that so I can get invested
Come
into it.
on,
And
dude. St. Louis Battlehawks, join the club. Join the
the
club.
Battle I'll have to make my final. I'll do some research and make my final pick on one of these episodes one time
Their
of who
head
I'm going to be a fan of.
their head coach is Rocco's dad. So,
Oh, okay.
and they got Hakeem Butler, which again, if he's double covered, he's catching it every time. Wide open, depends on the day. Do there? Maybe we have to start talking about if there's not a lot of NFL stuff going on. We might have to talk about some UFL. I'm telling you.
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed. I like watching football, so I might have to give this league a shot. I watched a little bit last year. Was that the first year they started back up after COVID, or was it 2 years
So
ago?
they've tried multiple times. First time the XFL started after COVID.
That's what I'm thinking of.
I think it was the second season of the other league that joined them, which is known as the USFL, which hence the combination of the two teams. But no, I'm trying to find the list of teams for you. That will be our challenge. Next week we'll have you pick out your official UFL team. And you can either join the boys and rep the Battlehawks, or you can choose someone else. Here, I guess this is not necessarily a relevant graphic, but it has all the team names on here. Let's roll it up for you real quick. All right, so we got the Birmingham Stallions, who I think, if I remember right, they have won every USFL championship of all time. So I think they've won, and this league was like the XFL, where it was around back in like I think the
Early
90s or early
2000s.
2000s. So I think they have three championships all time. The Memphis Showboats, which I actually kind of love that name, not gonna lie. Michigan Panthers, Houston Roughnecks coached by Bob Stoops. No, actually, that's the Arlington Renegades, I think, that are coached by Bob Stoops, who coached at Oklahoma. St. Louis Battlehawks, Cause Law, baby. Cause Law. San Antonio Brahmas, and DC Defenders. DC Defenders, if you're a guy that loves drinking beer, they are known for the beer snakes throughout the crowd. If you ever seen those videos, so they'll built the culture on that. They had a good team last year. I think they were the best team all the way until losing to the Seattle Dragons in the playoffs last year. It didn't matter though, because I think Arlington ended up winning the whole thing. But no, yeah, if you can't tell, I am kind of invested in this league because I actually know a little too much about these teams. AJ McCarron's on the Battlehawks, by the way, I think, if he didn't retire.
Alabama legend AJ McCarron, two-time national champion AJ McCarron.
Yes. So we'll have you pick out your team. And hey, you know what? Maybe we turn this into a UFL podcast for a little bit, and like we can still touch on
free agency and the draft,
free
and stuff
agency
like
and
that.
draft, because like let's be honest, there are going to be weeks where it's like, especially during the UFL, because I think they're from March until April. There are going to be weeks where it's like, there's not really anything to talk about, and I don't want to like beat a dead horse with some of the conversations that we might have. So we'll do a thing where it's like, if it's relevant, we'll do NFL. If there's not really anything going on, we'll talk a little UFL. By the way, if you guys are interested and want to like figure out how fun this league actually is to watch, search up St. Louis Battlehawks versus San Antonio Brahmas. And Dawson, this will be your homework assignment. I want you to look this game up. St. Louis Battlehawks versus San Antonio Brahmas. That was the first game of the regular season for both teams. St. Louis, I think, was down 13 or 14, ended up winning. There was 2 minutes left in the game because you can go for it on fourth down instead of kicking it onside. And they have the 2, 3, and 4 point conversion, I think it is. So again, it's not a normal league, but I'd say look up the game. It was so great. Hakeem Butler had one of the best receptions in that game to help the Battlehawks come back. But no, I highly recommend tuning into that league. And plus, whoops, didn't mean to remove you from the stream. There we go. There's a lot of players that made NFL rosters this year because of the UFL, I guess the XFL. but who knows?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite times of the year, right after football season, because that means I am going into straight mock draft season. I am a mock draft nerd. I do mock drafts every single day when I'm in class, even though I'm not supposed to. I will be on my grind on PFF and all those websites right there.
Is Caleb Williams going number 1 right now?
Yes, and he is going number 1 in my first mock draft today, and in my last mock draft the day of the draft.
And we'll probably do a live mock draft probably at some point here on the podcast leading up to the draft. I think we might just do like the first 15 picks or something like that, because like after 15 sometimes it gets a little messy. I personally feel, but we can figure it out as we get closer. But congrats, man, on another Super Bowl victory. If you guys go with 3-peat, man, I swear. I just want Celtics. You are my only hope of ever being happy as a sports fan. And hey, they beat the Heat. Yeah, you know what? If Max is still on this stream, shout out your Heat last night on the L. Take the L, baby. Season sweep against the Miami Heat for the first time, I think, since 2017, 2018 or something like that. First time either team has swept each other. But yeah, we'll be off for this week. We'll figure out what we're going to do for the offseason a little bit. Dawson's going to pick out his official UFL team next week. He's going to watch the St. Louis Battlehawks come back against the San Antonio Brahmas as well. Maybe that can convince him to go Kozlov, but it'll be interesting because I'm not going to tell you which ones were affiliates of which old league. And if you go against the XFL, man, I'm going to be upset because XFL is life. USFL, they wish they could be the XFL.
Yeah, but we'll see. We'll see on next week's episode if we do one.
Are you going to the parade at all?
You've
thought about it.
Oh, I definitely have. The issue is I am 2 hours east of Des Moines, and then it's another 2.5 hours down to Kansas City. So
have you
been 9 hours in driving for me if I want to go.
Have you been to one yet?
I haven't. Me and my dad almost went to the last year's, but
dude,
I don't know. I would probably say no, just with me being in Iowa City right now.
If you go, let me know.
Over Tuesday night.
If you go, let me know. I'll give you the access to our social media, or like you can put together like a reel or something of your trip. That would be fun. But like, I get that the drive is sometimes sucked. Iowa City's placed in a weird spot, really, when it tries to get to anywhere. But
it's 2.5 hours from everywhere. 2.5 hours from Des Moines, 2.5 hours from Chicago, 4.5 hours from Kansas City.
But dude, I'm not trying to convince you to go, but like, you
have me thinking about it more because I definitely thought about it last night.
It's one of those things where it's like, okay, I get, like I said, Kansas City is probably going to be my pick next year, but you never know. This might be the last time, you know? Might be the last time.
I hope not. I hope we're going for that 3-peat, first time in NFL history, but
we'll see. Someone that will never see his teams win anything, I think you should.
Maybe me and you got to go next year. Maybe that's what we got to do.
For the Cardinals one? Oh, yeah. Arizona's winning it this year.
Dude, that would be perfect weather. The Kansas City ones are usually snowing and raining, and it's like slush. That would be freaking awesome.
Have you looked at the weather for tomorrow? Or I guess when is it?
It's Wednesday.
Is it Wednesday?
It's Wednesday.
Let's look. We got to see. We got to see here. Kansas City. Dude, it's going to be 61. High is 61.
Okay. So now you actually have me thinking a lot about this.
And dude, come on. I'm pure pressuring you right now. High is 61. Who knows if they'll ever make it again? You just said when his career's over, you'll look back as this being the biggest Super Bowl that Patrick Mahomes has won. Come on, man. Come on.
I'm not going to give a definitive answer because I truly do not know yet. But trust me, if I make the decision to drive down there, I will let you know, and I will be taking some pictures and some videos. And
we want some content, baby. Let's go.
Yes, sir.
All right. We'll sign off finally. I think we've been trying to the last 10 minutes, but again, congrats to the Kansas City Chiefs. Congrats to Dawson on the free meal that he'll be getting later this year. We'll probably do a video on when that actually happens. But the offseason starts. UFL season's right around the corner. But for Dawson Livingston, I'm Brock Beirman. We are the Sports Nerds, and we are signing off for the week.